Okay, so let's start. Well, which of you remote people would like to go first?
Oh, heck, I'll do it.
Oh,
Okay, Charlene.
go ahead, Charlene.
Okay, so I'm going to put Charlene on spotlight. Is that going to work? There we go. Okay, take it away.
I grew up in a Pennsylvania Dutch family. We spoke German and Pennsylvania Dutch in the home, deeply embedded in the local school district, local church, fire company, you name it, we were in it. So yeah, background of volunteerism. And I attended an elementary school for which my grandfather donated the property. He also donated the property in which my mother's one-room schoolhouse was built. So he was on the school supervisors for like decades. So here I am. I finally get to go to school. First grade. I am so excited. I have my little red jacket so the hunters wouldn't accidentally shoot me when they were having hunting season. And I have this red leather book bag and my little, I called them it shoes because all the boys and girls wore this particular kind of shoe. And I'm walking down the lane. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great. And I knew most of the kids who were going to my first grade class. So I go in first grade, get my desk, put my stuff away. We introduce ourselves. We have some fun games. I like the teacher, and it's lunchtime. Ah, man, I get to go to lunch in the cafeteria and eat with kids. I was an only kid, so, lunchtime was like maybe my grandmother would make some chicken soup or something. But it was like, kids, this is great. But she told us on the way there that we actually had to behave and that she'd be in the room. Oh, well, you can't win them all. So I pick up my tray, the one that has all the little compartments in it. I get in line, I hold out my tray, and plop, plop goes some food. And I thought, that hand looks familiar. That arm looks familiar. Mommy, what are you doing here? I'm the school cook, she said with glee. And although I didn't know the phrase, I think in my little first grade brain, I'm going, oh shit. So I know I had to behave. Sat down, ate my lunch, well, most of my lunch. So I take my tray to the hole in the wall where we were told to shove it in, and somebody would scrape the extra food off and put it in a dishwasher. So I shove my tray in. My tray comes flying back out. My father's head appears in the window, and he said, go back and finish your green beans. So much for independence starting in the first grade. So my parents worked at the elementary school the 6 years I was there. 7th grade, it's like, I get a fresh start. This is going to be great. I was kind of apprehensive because it was 7 through 12. I had heard the big kid shoved you in the locker and flushed your head down the toilet. But I figured, yeah, not with my family background. Everybody knows who they are. So I figured I was pretty safe. So I'm standing at the bus stop, waiting for the bus. Bus pulls up, door opens. I walk up the stairs.
Hi, Hanson.
Dad, what are you doing here? He said, I transferred to high school. I'm your bus driver, and I'm the janitor at the school, and I help in the cafeteria. So I'll see you every day. By that time, I knew, oh, shit. I'm thinking it's just not fair. And he said, and furthermore, you and your neighbor, Nancy, who was Nancy Goody Two Shoes, are going to sit in the last row of the boys' side because there are more girls than boys, and you're going to keep an eye on them and let me know what's going on. Thank you. Okay, so he had the mirror adjusted so we could see everything, so I didn't need to tattle. But yeah, I saw my dad every day at lunch. Every day at lunch. And yeah, I was really glad to get away to college in 1968. That was fun. So, yeah, my dad working at the school explained why I had 2 dates in high school, because in those days they had to ask your dad. Problem was, everybody knew him. So it goes. And when I got to college, that's a story for another time.
All right.
Okay,
That was wonderful.
wonderful personal tale.
All right. Okay, who wants to be next?
Grayson's here, so I'll go next.
Okay, Ron, let me put the
This
spot.
is my grandson, Grayson, by the way. He likes listening to
Grayson?
it, I tell.
Hey,
I
Grayson.
need my hand sports. He can't sit in my lap while I tell him.
All right.
I'm going to tell this story tomorrow for genre storytelling with the Sacramento or SAC Storyteller Association California. Hey, and I wanted to practice it tonight because I haven't told it for a while. Katie of the Seals. Catherine, was the oldest of 5 children. And because of that, she was given a task from time to time that the others were not deemed worthy of. This particular day, she was kept up in their cabin, up along the low cliffs, to stir the pot and add ingredients in the correct order over the course of the day so dinner would be ready when they came in. And that left her time to do all sorts of things that were fun in between stirrings and whatevers. So she was looking forward to the day. The weather was supposed to be calm, but about mid-morning, a breeze came up. She didn't know where from, but it didn't worry her. Her father was an accomplished boatsman and was out on the bay looking for seals, and she thought everything would be fine, except that the wind kept getting wilder and wilder. And then there was hoofbeats coming up the trail from the first city, from the village, and he said, someone's coming. Who would be coming? A knock came at the door. She opened the door, and there was a man with grayish silver hair he had never seen before. He said, Katie, your father is in trouble. Come with me. You need to help him. She didn't question. She simply stepped out into a gathering gloom and windy area. The man reached for her hand, picked her up, threw her on the top of the largest horse she had ever seen, jumped on the top of it, but instead of riding back down to the village where she would have gone out to sea or found her family, he rode further up the cliffs, and faster went the great horse, going directly toward the place where the great cliffs had a curve out over the bay into the rocks below. Children were never allowed anywhere near that place. But he didn't slow down. The horse literally leaped off into the air, and the 3 of them tumbled off in different directions. And as they fell, the horse turned into a walrus, and the man turned into a seal. And Katie took a deep breath, thinking the water was going to drown her, and splashed in. But it didn't seem all that cold to her. As she started to swim, I realized I've been turned into a seal. The seal who had led her this far motioned to her to follow him and swam down. She thought, I'll surely drown, but she didn't. They approached a strange curtain of shimmering lights behind it. When she passed through it, she turned back into Katie, and was walking on dry land in the land of the Selkies. And the man turned to her and said, hurry, you must help. Come with me. They hurried past many other seals and people in one form or the other, and rushed into a great palace made with beautiful rocks and pearls. And she said, there, look at the evil that has been done by man. And lying on a dais was a very large seal. And sticking out of it was a knife Katie knew well, for it had hung on her father's wall every day of her life. Evil you have brought to our land, you must repair it. Pull out that knife. Well, she didn't think she could, but she went forward and reached forward and took the handle of the. It felt like she was being stabbed by 1,000 knives. All the pain that the great seal in front of her was feeling was transferred up into Katie's arms, and she tugged, but she couldn't move it. And she tugged harder, but she couldn't move the knife. And she said, "Help me, someone help me." Suddenly, there were hands on her waist, pulling her back, and then more, as different seal people added their strength. And she held on with all of her strength, and finally, the long knife slid out. She set it on the ground and looked back, but it wasn't the man who spoke to her, it was the seal himself. "Put your hands in my wound, child." She was afraid to, but she did it. And as she did, if she thought the knife was terrible, this was the most horrible pain she could ever imagine feeling. But as her hand went down, she could feel blood gurgling past her fingers, and then it slowed down. And when she could reach in no further, she slowly drew her hands out. And as she did, the side of the great seal healed and came together. And when it was done, you could barely tell where there was a ripple in his silver fur. He looked at her and said, "Well, Miss Katie, you have saved my life this day. But of course, it was partly your fault or your family's fault that I was in this space in the first place. You may go now." "Well, sir, what about my father?" "Oh, he's in great danger, but we'll reward you another way. We can give you pearls to make you a rich lady. You would never have to work for the rest of your life." "No, sir, I came to save my father. Can't you help me save my father?" That is the answer I hoped you would give, child. Take her, tell her what she must do before you pass the curtain. So she followed the young man who had come to her, a prince of the family. And he said, "We're going to swim up. You're going to come up by your father's boat. It is in great danger. You are in great danger. You will have just one chance. You must swim as fast as you can and leap up onto your father's boat over the gunwale, just as it is tipping toward you. If you leap too soon, you will hit the side. If you leap too late, you will miss altogether. Time your single leap perfectly." She nodded her head, but wondered how she could possibly do such a thing. They passed through the shimmering curtain, and she became a seal again. And they set off through the water. They came a while later. She could see that the water was disturbed. They went up to the surface, and there was a whirling kind of storm she had never seen before. It seemed like the one came from every direction. There was thunder and lightning in the sky, and there in the middle of it was her father's boat. She watched its movements for a moment. She swam toward it with all of her might. She leaped at the right moment and landed on the deck. And as she did, she became Katie again. Father said, "Katie, what are you doing here, child? I've come to help." "Grab that rope." And she saw what the problem was. The sail, the boom of the sail had broken free. The rope had pulled its screw right out of the whales and wood, and it was flopping every which direction. And every time her dad would push the sail back to get a little wind, he had to let go of the rudder. And so the boat would turn in the wrong direction. And he didn't have a third hand to do any of the things that needed to be done. He said, hold the rope, brace your feet, hold the rope. We'll get out of this yet." She did as she was told. And he got a hold of the till, and he turned the bow out of to the edge and let the sail blow them slowly out of the great storm. And as they passed out the end of it, the storm seemed to die. And they looked around, and they were many miles out at sea. But that didn't worry her father, for he knew the way home. He made a quick semi-repair to get his ropes and lines in order, steered the boat back toward shore. The whole village was down waiting, hoping to see them when they finally came in sight. Katie looked at her father and said, "We must not tell anyone about the seals. We must protect them. We must not tell anyone about them." He looked at her strangely, but he agreed not to say anything about her adventure until she said he could. They went to the village. She said that someone had helped her out to the sea. They'd found her father's boat. She jumped aboard and helped him turn it around, and they'd got them back safely. And people rejoiced, and they had hot food and people patting them on the back and saying, "We thought we'd lost you today." And finally, the celebration broke up and they went home. When Katie got there, she said, "We didn't tell the truth today. It was not strangers in a boat who came for me. It was a great seal, a silky. He came and showed me how to reach down to the ocean and how to help him save his father, for which they allowed me to save mine. We must never share that part of this story, for if we do, people will try and dive or work the way down to the kingdom of the Silkies, and great havoc would be brought, and this would be evil. Promise me, all of you, you will never share that part of our story." Her father looked at her, and then he thought, "Where is my great knife?" And then he said, "Katie, I do not know how our family will survive, but I do not think after today I will ever hunt a seal again. We will find a way." That was, of course, when Katie was young. She grew into a beautiful woman. She married the fishmonger's son. She lived a long life of contentment and adequate, and had children of her own. But she never forgot the days she spent among the seals. And she never doubted for a moment that there are other powers and other ways of life just beyond our reach. But they're only there if you're willing to believe. Katie and the Seals, a Scottish legend.
All right.
Right, thank you. That was a great story.
Nice.
Hadn't told it in a while, didn't start perfectly.
Yeah, hi, Grayson. Okay, Walt, do you want to be next?
Yeah. You can hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes. I'm gonna
Okay.
put spotlight. There you go.
This is a folktale, I believe. I actually ran across it in some notes I took years ago. And so I've kind of reconstructed this story. I don't know where it came from. I don't even know the title of it, but I gave it my own title, which is The Bowl of Soup. Jim was a good kid. His mother was proud of him because he could take responsibility. He was very helpful to her. He and his mother made their living by growing vegetables and herbs and selling them in the village market. He knew everybody in the village, and everybody in the village knew him. But one day, when he was minding the stall, a strange woman approached. He had never seen her before. She was quite a sight. She was hunched over. She had a huge nose that looked like a sausage, and she had a long, stringy neck that looked like a turkey's. And she had a basket on her arm, and she approached his stall, and she started examining his vegetables and herbs with great detail. She was handling all of them with her hands and sticking them right up into her face and sniffing them. This was very annoying to Jim. And he said, "Can I help you?" She said, "Are these vegetables fresh?" And he said, "They're very fresh. We just picked them today." She said, "Huh. I know fresh, and this is not fresh." Well, Jim was getting pretty irritated. His patience was limited, and he said, "Well, you don't have to stick your big nose in our vegetables." She said, So you don't like my nose, do you? And she wagged her head at him. He said, well, you better stop wagging your head too, because on that long neck of yours, your head will probably fall off. She said, so you don't like my neck either, do you? Ha! Well, someday, young man, you just might have a nose and a neck just like it. Well, she finally did buy some vegetables, quite a few, filled up her basket, and then she said, oh, young man, these vegetables are so heavy, and I live so far away, and I'm so old. Could you please help me by carrying these home for me? He said, okay. So he took the vegetables and followed her out to her cottage, which he never even knew existed out there. He walked into her little cottage and he was greeted with a wonderful smell, a delicious smell of something cooking. He put the vegetables down and she said, young man, I don't have much money, but I would like to do something to thank you for carrying my vegetables. Would you have a bowl of soup? And the soup smelled so delicious that even though he really didn't want to stay, he was a bit hungry. So he sat down and he gobbled down the soup, and it was delicious. But after he had finished the last spoonful, his head began to feel kind of funny. He felt sort of dizzy, and things around the room started spinning, and he felt oh so sleepy. And then he had the most incredible dreams. They were kind of disturbing. Things were spinning around his head. Things like bowls and spoons and vegetables and all kinds of food was spinning around in his head. And every now and then, a big wooden spoon would knock him on the head, which hurt, even in his dream. Well, finally, he woke up. And when he did, and his head cleared, he looked around the room and he noticed there was nothing there. The old woman had gone, and every one of her possessions was gone too. He thought, that's strange. So he got up and he figured, I better rush home because my mother will be worried. I don't know how long I've been here. He went into the village, and as he walked down the street, he saw out of the side of his eye people staring at him. He could feel it. And he heard snickers and sometimes outright laughs. He thought, what's so funny? And he walked up, he saw his mother's stall, and he walked up to it, and he said, Mother, I'm sorry I was so late. Can I help you? And she looked up at him and she said, who are you? He said, I'm Jim, I'm your son. And she said, you are most definitely not my son. My son, Jim, left without a word 7 years ago, and I haven't heard from him since. And he doesn't look anything like you. At that moment, Jim began to feel his face, and he noticed he had a huge nose, like a sausage. And he felt his neck, and it was a long, scrawny neck like a turkey. And he thought, oh no, what's happened? 7 years, and I look totally different? Well, he ran away, ran out of the village, and he just had to think, what was he going to do? He sat at the crossroads outside the village on a stump and just thought and thought. And as he waited, a man on a very fancy horse and dressed in very fine clothes came walking up. He stopped, said, hello there, young man. What are you doing? Said, I'm just waiting to decide what to do with myself. He said, well, I think I know what you should do. You should come with me to the castle. I think I have a job for you. He said, a job for me at the castle? What could that be? He said, well, from the looks of your face, I would say court jester. Well, he didn't think that was very funny. He said, I'm not a court jester. I'm a cook. And he thought, why did I say that? He had never cooked anything in his life. But suddenly he realized, yes, it all came back to him. He was a cook. That woman must have been a witch. She put an evil spell on him through that soup. And for 7 years, he had been her cook. Well, what a state of development that was. He said, I won't be a court jester, but I will be a cook. And he said, well, there just might be a job for you as an assistant cook. Come with me. So he took him to the castle, introduced him to the cook, and they got along just very well because it turned out that that old witch was an excellent cook. And Jim had learned a great deal about cooking and made everyone in the castle very happy with his dishes. He got promoted and became more than just a helper. He was really the assistant cook. And he became quite confident in his abilities. But then one day, an order came through that said, we would have a guest, the king's friend. He would like to have his favorite dish prepared. It's called Serbian goose. Would you please cook it? And he immediately said, of course. But the problem was he had absolutely no idea how to cook a Serbian goose or what it was. But he thought, well, I'll think of something. So he went down to the market to get a goose. As he strolled through the market, he found a man who was selling geese. He looked at them, and as he approached one of them in a cage, something strange happened. The goose said, help me. He turned and said, did you just say something to me? Yes, I said, help me. I am not really a goose. I'm a girl. He said, okay. How did this happen? She said, an evil woman, a witch, she put a spell on me and turned me into a goose. It all started 7 years ago. I am a miller's daughter, and at our mill, we were making flour, and this horrible old woman showed up. She had a big nose like a sausage, and a neck that was scrawny like a turkey. And after she bought the flour, she said, I'm so old, please help carry it to my house. And so I did. And then when I got there, she said, would you have a bowl of soup as a way of saying thank you? And I did, and it was delicious. But once I ate it, everything started spinning around in my head. Then, 7 years later, my head began to clear, and I realized that she had made me her housekeeper, like a slave for 7 years under her spell. But when I came out of the spell, I didn't tell her. I pretended to still be under the spell because I was afraid of her. I didn't know what she might do to me. She knew I was no longer under her real power. Well, that night when she thought I was asleep, she sneaked out of the house and into the woods, and I followed her. She went out into a clearing in the middle of the night, under a full moon, and I saw her raise up her arms and begin to pray to the moon for magical powers. At that point, I accidentally stepped on a stick and it broke and made a noise, and she saw me and she was very angry. How dare you spy on me, she said. And she cast another spell on me and turned me into a goose. And then she sold me into the market. And that's why I want you to buy me, so that you can save me. Somebody might buy me and make me, cook me for their dinner. Please save me. So he bought the goose, and he did not go back to the castle. He took her away. And then they had a discussion about what to do. He explained to her that the very same thing happened to him 7 years before. when he was turned into a cook by must have been the very same lady. What are they going to do? She said, I know that her powers are somehow from the moon in that clearing. Let's go out in the clearing, near the clearing, to hide in the woods and wait for her to come the next full moon. And when she comes, we'll grab her and force her to turn us back into our regular selves. He said, okay, we'll try it. So on the next full moon, they waited in the woods for her to come at the clearing. She came and she stood in the clearing and she raised her arms to the full moon and she said, give me my magical powers. And at that moment, it began to rain. Not everywhere, but just in the clearing on her. But it didn't rain raindrops. It rained flower petals. And everywhere those petals touched the ground, a mushroom sprouted. Those must be the power, she whispered. The girl whispered. But the witch heard her say that. And she turned to her and said, oh, you. And she saw Jim. Oh, and you too. How dare you spy on me? I'll teach you. And she raised up her hand as though to cast a spell on those two. But as she did, a bolt of lightning came from the heavens and struck her dead. Jim and the girl were astonished and frightened, but all was quiet. They walked up to nothing but a smoldering remains of the witch. The girl said, let's take the mushrooms and eat them. They must be her power, and then we can change ourselves back. And that's exactly what they did. They picked the mushroom and each ate one. And they wished to be turned back into their regular selves, and the magic worked. And they were transformed back into their regular selves. And they became very fast friends, and eventually they married. She did the housekeeping, and he did the cooking, but no soup.
All right.
Well done. A great story.
Love the tale.
Yeah. Where did you write that story, Walt?
Well, I had some sketchy notes, and I kind of put flesh on it.
All right, that's incredible. All right, let's remove the spotlight. And now we're going to have people here in the hallway. Oh, my goodness. Elaine, you joined us. How long have you been here?
Minutes. I got in a little late.
Did you hear that last story, the whole thing?
Yes, not the whole thing, but I got the whole gist of it. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Glad you could make it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a story. Do you, Barbara? And do you, Moise? No. Oh, okay. So do you want to go first or second? Second. Second. Okay. Okay. I'm going to turn this around. You guys can stay. There is a chair. Somebody could sit in a chair. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, I need to put it on spotlight. Spotlight for everyone. There we go. And I'm kind of in the dark. Let me move it.
A little better.
Is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a folktale from China, and it's called The Magic Pot. Once upon a time, there was a poor but hardworking woodcutter, and he was walking home from the forest with his axe strapped onto his back. Suddenly, he came upon a very large, old, abandoned pot made out of brass. It was the biggest pot he had ever seen in his life. So he thought, wow, this is a wonderful pot. I should take this home, but how am I going to carry it? It's huge and bulky. I can't possibly carry this home. And then he came up with an idea. He untied the shoulder strap that was holding the axe on his back, put the axe into the pot, and then took that strap, tied one end onto a handle of the pot, tied the other end of the strap around his waist, and started the long, hard work to to drag that pot behind him all the way home. But he made it. It was slow going, but he made it. And he got to his small house and he managed to get the pot inside the house. And when his wife saw the pot, she was very pleased. Oh, it's our lucky day. Husband, you found a great old pot and another axe. No, wife, I found the pot, but I already had the axe. Oh, but there are two axes in the pot. So the woodcutter leaned over, he looked into the pot, and he was speechless. There were two identical axes in the pot. He leaned over a little bit more to have a closer look, and the straw hat he was wearing fell into the pot, and suddenly there were two straw hats. Oh, said the woodcutter, this pot is magical or it's haunted. And the wife said, oh, husband, it is magical, but I think it's our lucky day. Let me go get our dinner. You take the things out of the pot and see what it does to our dinner. And so he took the axes and the two straw hats out of the pot. She put the dinner in the pot, and suddenly there were two dinners. Oh, our lucky day, said his wife. She said, go to our secret hiding place where we have those coins we're saving for a rainy day. And so he went and found the handful of coins. He put it into the pot, and suddenly the coins doubled. He took them out, put them back in. They doubled again. This time they both had to take them out because it was getting to be a lot. And they did that for a whole hour, over and over, doubling and doubling and doubling the coins until they had no place to put the coins. Every single pot and drawer and container in the house was full of coins. They were rich. And so the woodcutter said, oh, this is our lucky day. We are rich. We have plenty of money to build a beautiful house and have a beautiful garden. I won't have to go into the forest anymore and chop down trees to sell as firewood. This is wonderful. I'm so happy I could dance. And he started dancing around. He grabbed his wife and started dancing around. But he slipped on a coin that was on the floor, fell off balance, and threw his wife into the pot.
Oh.
Suddenly, there were two wives. They climbed out of the pot and stared at him. Oh, what have I done? Said the woodcutter. Can a man live with two wives in one house? Not in my house, said the first wife. Not in my house, said the second wife. And they looked at each other and smiled. They grabbed the woodcutter and threw him into the pot. Now there were two woodcutters, and they climbed out of the pot, and they both said at the same time, can two couples live in the same house? Not in my house, said the first wife. Not in my house, said the second wife. And so they started talking, and they figured there was enough money that each couple could afford to build a brand new house right next to each other. And from that time on, the people of the village would remark how strange it was that the relatives of that husband and wife who came to visit them looked so much like them. And they must have brought money with them so they could build those two beautiful houses. That's the magic pot.
Oh,
okay. Okay, Barbara, your turn.
all right.
So my brother, 3 years older, always said, we're a fishing family.
Babies.
All of our weekends we spent out at Ten Killer Lake or Grand Lake of the Cherokees. We just called it Grand. Spavinaw, Fort Gibson. See, I was raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that's what we did on weekends. We get in the car. The old Dodge, Dad would take out the back seat and he'd put in the cots and the sleeping, we didn't have sleeping bags, we just had quilts. And then he'd put quilts all over all the camping equipment. And then we would just sit on the quilts, you know, there weren't any seatbelts or anything like that. And so we'd go camping. Some of these lakes, well, you heard the names, they're Indian names. And we would search for arrowheads. It was pretty exciting to find arrowheads. Now that I think back on it, I think, oh, those were real Indians trying to survive. For us, it was a game. We always took our dog with us, and it's really fun to wake up in the morning to the smell of bacon frying. And we probably woke up more because the dog was just a little bit too high to go underneath the cot without waking us up. The bathrooms didn't have any flushing toilets, which I really hated. But we were out there. We weren't in a cabin. We had tarps strung from tree to tree. When my brother and I were divvying up all the pictures, he found a picture of such a rundown campsite. Look at that, that's really camping. Because at that point, my husband and I had a 1978 pop-top Volkswagen Campmobile. So there was no putting out a tent or anything. We just crawled up to the top. His son was about 4 when we started camping together. And so he would sit in the little cot in the front. I mean, this thing was well decked out. Had a sink and all that. It was great. Sometimes if the weather was really bad, we would also get in a little fishing cabin. And they were just rudimentary things. I mean, rudimentary. They had a stove and a sink, bathroom. No TV, so it was really different. And they had radio. And I can remember sitting as a family around the table after dinner listening to stories on the radio. One time when we left a camping site, we were headed home and we stopped at a gas station to get gas. And the man was admiring our dog. And we were so proud. We talked about how great Taffy was and everything. And then when we drove off a ways down the road, my mother said, "How's Taffy doing?" And we go, "Oh!" We left Taffy behind. U-turn, go back. And the whole time I'm thinking, I bet that guy thought we were just talking that dog up so we could dump the dog. And sure enough, they were looking down the road for us, both of them, with little heads looking down the road. And we were so glad to have Taffy back. He was a little problem in the back seat, because on the floor, because we did have a little minnow bucket can just in case us kids couldn't make it all the way home, you know what I mean? And that could be a problem sometimes. There was one time, most of our summer trips were actually down to Texas, to Austin, Texas, in the car without the I-35, you know, it was just hard driving. And we'd stay at my mother's house, Grandmother Ramsey. And it was great. One time we even went down for Christmas. And at Christmas time, we also had the cousins in town. So we had 5 kids, 5 adults, and the piano room was dedicated for the Christmas tree and all the gifts. And there were so many gifts, they hadn't finished wrapping them until noon of Christmas Day. We were knocking on the wooden sliding doors. And that's the first time I heard my mother curse. You kids get out of here. So after they wrapped all that stuff, we unwrapped it within 20 minutes. And the thing that we were most fascinated by was the balsa wood airplanes, you know, It's just a base, and then you stick the little wing through it, and then you just, throw it like that. They were in our stockings, and it's a 2-story house with an attic. So we went up all the stairs, open up the front window, throw those planes out, and then run down all the stairs and go out and get them, and go up and do it again. And my mother said, all these expensive gifts down here, they want those 10-cent airplanes. It costs a lot more than 10 cents now, because I've tried to give them to other kids in the neighborhood. They weren't as excited as we were at the time, I must admit. There was a time when there was some arguing in the kitchen and the door had been closed. And when she opened the door, she said, this summer, we're not going to Texas. We're going to Disneyland. We were so excited. Oh my gosh, it was a big, big trip, big indulgence. Even though my father had free airplane passes for the whole family working for American Airlines all those years. So we finally got to Disneyland, and oh my, to see the animals, the caricatures, and to go on that jungle cruise, and to eat in a real restaurant, stand in those long lines. It was fabulous. And somewhere at home, there is a rolled up pastel etching, print, drawing of me with my little ponytail, age 9. Somebody's going to find that someday in some box somewhere. It was a good childhood. I was very lucky. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so I think that's all of the stories. Thank you for bearing with us with the strange arrangement, because I forgot the keys to get into the room. It's difficult doing this in the hallway, especially when people walk by making lots of noise, but hopefully you heard all the stories. And I do want to say that it took me a while to get a consensus, and there was no date that could have been chosen where everyone from our group could participate. But the majority of our storytellers have chosen May 6th to host the Southern California Story Swap Festival. And all we're waiting for now is final confirmation from Claremont Friends meeting. And when I get that, I will send out the word and make up the flyers and the registration forms, and we'll welcome all the help I can get in hosting this all-day event. This will be the 3rd time we have done it. The other 2 times were also at the Claremont Friends meeting. It's a wonderful facility. And it's a lot of work, but it's a great day with workshops by professional storytellers, story swap breakout sessions where everyone gets to share stories. We'll have the 60-second story thing. Lunch will be part of the day. And you'll get to meet people from all over Southern California, because it's the time when all the storytelling groups in Southern California get together. And I believe this will either be the 37th or the 38th time we've done it, but the first time since 2019, because COVID interrupted. Prior to that, it was every year for like 37 years in a row. Well, now we're resurrecting it. And I will get that word out to you as soon as we get confirmation on the date. So thank you all for joining. Oh, Ron, you said you had some announcements to make. Where's Ron? You're muted, Ron. Did you unmute?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yes. The genre storytelling tomorrow night is going to be really wonderful, and you have to register your tickets with the Storyteller Association of California. But it will start at about 7:30 tomorrow evening, and there'll be 8 of us telling stories. And I'll tell the same story I just told, so you might have to listen to it twice in a lifetime. I don't know. Okay. Then on Thursday night, the South Coast Storytelling Guild will hold a hybrid story swap at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. And you can zoom into that and share a tale or listen to a tale. And then if you're really adventurous and you live in Orange County, I wouldn't recommend driving from Riverside to there for this purpose. On Friday night, St. Paul's is having a St. Patrick's Day party at $30 a person with Irish stew and corned beef and cabbage and games and excitement. And a professional storyteller by the name of Ronald Chick will be providing entertainment for the crowd. So I'd be delighted if any of you could come. It won't be Zoomable, and I'm looking forward to doing it. I think this is the first time in my life when I've actually had storytelling to do on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Well, that's great, Ron. And I will add that Saturday is the San Diego Storytelling Festival down in Coronado. Oh, off the spotlight here. Yeah, so I will Chris and I are going to drive down to Coronado, and it's at the Coronado Public Library, and it's free. It's an all-day storytelling festival.
And they do a marvelous job of it.
Oh, they've got great storytellers in the San Diego area, and it's just a long drive. So that's something to look forward to as well.
What date is that, John?
So it's this Saturday, the 18th,
Oh, this Saturday. Okay.
March 18th. Yeah. I will send out an email to everybody on the email list. Charlene, do you want to be put on the email list? Or are you already on it?
Yes, I'm on.
You're already on.
I used it tonight to zoom in.
Well, I sent you an individual email with the Zoom link, but I don't know that you're on our email list. You would have gotten that email on Monday.
No.
Yeah. So do you want to be on the list so you get all of our announcements?
No, but can I keep getting the invitation for this one?
Yeah. I will send you the invitation for the the monthly story swap.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll do.
By the way, John, I think your backdrop is the best one of tonight, man. I love the background behind you. It looks fantastic. I know it's not that comfortable though.
Yeah, usually I have the backdrop that is the picture of Mono Lake.
I like this one better.
Oh, my love, we're wrapping up.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you all for joining.
All right.
I'm gonna end the recording.